先天下之忧而忧，后天下之乐而乐。这是我今天要讲的主题。Just in case you are alarmed that I might be speaking in Mandarin today, don't worry, okay? But for those of you who understand, a government that cares for the people, right, will gain the utmost respect of the people. Today I will talk about why is it that the government does not spend a single cent on healthcare. It does not spend a single cent on HDB to provide public housing. It does not spend a single cent on our CPF system. Let me start with HDB. Most of the land on which HDB flats are built, of course, by the time they build them, will be state land. State land is either state land right from the beginning, or they are land that are acquired at very, very low cost. Under the Land Acquisition Act, much of the land were acquired like at $1 or something. So when you take the land and then you build flats, and then you sell it at what they call the market subsidy pricing policy, which is if a HDB resale flat costs 350,000 and they sell it to you at 250,000, they tell you you have a subsidy of 100,000. But in reality, if you track the cash flows, the cost of producing or building this flat may be just over 100,000. The rest of the selling price would be the land cost. Let me use another analogy to explain this. And this is what I call the chicken rice analogy. Let's say I sell chicken rice and I sell it at $3. Then I tell you, oh, actually I'm giving you a subsidy of $2, you know, because the restaurant sell at $5. Now then, of course, the customer will say, okay, you sell me your chicken rice at $3. What is your cost, you know? How much is your chicken? How much is your rice? Now, almost every year, Singaporeans have been asking, whether in the newspaper forums or in Parliament, but the answer never came, right? You get replies, but you don't get answers. There's never been a breakdown of the HDB, cost of building, cost of the land, and so on. In fact, the last time that we can find the breakdown was something that early 1980s, when the HDB used to break down the cost. So from what I've said so far, you can see that actually it does not cost the government a single cent to provide HDB or public housing. Because if you take the actual cost of construction, right, they are making a lot of money. Now HDB has said that it loses about $1 billion a year in deficit. In fact, the previous minister, National Development Minister, said they were losing $2 billion a year. Now this is what I find very strange, because the previous minister at that time was building and selling much less flats, you know. So you sell less flats, you lose $2 billion. Now you sell more flats, you lose $1 billion. To me, that does not make sense. But let me not detract from what I call the overarching conceptualization of what I'm trying to say, and that is it does not cost the government a single cent on HDB or to provide public housing. Next, let me move on to the CPF system. Now, unlike other countries which provide a pension for their citizens, our CPF system doesn't cost the government a single cent also, because it is your own money. You contribute your own money, and then when you reach 55, if you have more than the current 148,000, the minimum sum, you draw the excess, the rest is left there under the CPF life scheme. So this is all your money. The government does not put in any money at all. And therefore, as I said right at the beginning, does not cost the government to provide a single cent on the CPF system. In fact, just like the HDB example that I've said earlier, government makes a lot of money from the CPF system. How? The money that we contribute to CPF We get 2.5% on the ordinary account, 4% on the MediSave special and retirement accounts. On the first 60,000, you get extra 1%. What happens to the money that we put into CPF? The government takes over this money by issuing what they call non-marketable government bonds. What do you mean non-marketable? Unlike other government bonds, you can sell them in the open market. This one where they take from the CPF bought your money is non-marketable. And the rate is pegged to exactly whatever is the rate that they are paying you on your respective CPF accounts. So they pay us 2.5 or 4 or 5 on the first 60,000. What happens to this money? Well, it goes to government, right? Temasek had a return of 16% per annum for the last 39 years. The Government Investment Corporation, GIC, had a return of about 6% per annum in US dollar terms for like the last 20 years. Now, of course, today we always get the answer that no CPF is used or given to Temasek or GIC. But that, I believe, is now. What about in the past, for the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years? Where did Temasek's cash injection from the government and where did GIC's money originate from? And let us not forget that all these state entities, when they are transferred to Temasek and then they are valued to market or they become a listed company, all this may have come originally from funds from the government. And much of these funds may have come from our CPF. Next, let me move on to what Dr. Paul Tambayar mentioned, and that is healthcare. The government does not spend a single cent on healthcare as well. Some of you are looking very alarmed. How is it possible that after Dr. Paul Tambayar's presentation, I'm telling you that the government doesn't spend a single cent on healthcare? Let me explain. Our healthcare system is unique in the world because we contribute as much as 9 or 9.5% of our salary every month to MediSave. Annual contributions to CPF is about $26 billion. So I estimate the annual MediSave contribution is about maybe 7 billion or even more. The total public health care spending by the government is only over $4 billion. About 4 billion in operating expenditure and a few hundred million in development expenditure. So in terms of public health care spending as a percentage of GDP, the last Singapore reported fiscal numbers is only about 1.6% of GDP. This is one of the lowest in the world. But from a cash flow basis, if all of you pay 7 billion a year and the government only pays 4 over billion a year, does it cost the government a single cent to provide health care to you? The answer is no. Even for MediShield, it does not cost the government a single cent as well. Why? Because you pay your MediShield premiums, then government pays the claims. Let's look at the numbers. And this is where I'm puzzled by Paul's numbers, because he showed us that the accumulated surplus on MediShield is 500 over million. However, just last year, I believe, in Parliament, the answer was given that over the last 10 years or so, MediShield premiums collected, less claims paid out, was about 850 million in excess. So if just the last 10 years, 850 million of premiums minus claims, how can the accumulated reserve be 500 over million? Anyway, when it comes to Q&A, this will be my first question to Paul. Anyway, he will have ample time to prepare for that. I know what Paul will say. I got this number from the government, maybe. Right? Now, that is not all. Because if you listen to the parliamentary reply carefully, it says over the last 10 years or so. So what about the excess of premiums over claims in the years before the 10 years? Therefore, it must be more than 850 million. But that's not all. What about the interest on all these surplus funds over the years? Most of the government endowment or funds, as I understand, will assume a 4% return on the money. So, if we add this 4% to the 850 million, to the excess of premiums over claims before the last 10 years, how much are we talking about? $1 billion? But that is not all also, because when MediShield Plus was transferred many years ago to a private insurer, I believe the $64,000 question has never been answered, and possibly, if I believe, never asked as well. Was the surplus from MediShield Plus scheme transferred to the private insurer? If not, what happened to the surplus? How much was the surplus? If you add this to the MediShield surplus, maybe it's more than 1 billion as well. So, it does not cost the government a single cent to provide healthcare. It does not cost the government a single cent to provide MediShield. If you look at MediShield and MediSave withdrawals, even if you add that to the 4 billion the government is spending, it's still less than the $7 billion that we are paying every year. You see, as it stands today, the amount of CPF contributions every year is increasing. So relatively, the contribution total CPF to total withdrawal, that ratio is also increasing. Currently, only more than 40% of CPF contributed is actually withdrawn every year. So it's not just that government don't have to spend a single cent, because they make a lot of money as well. Because if only 40 over cents of every dollar of CPF contribution is being withdrawn, the government has use of that 50 over cents. Now, let me go specifically to what I've been asked to talk about today, which is HDB. The newspapers have been full of HDB changes practically every day. The National Day rally was full of great news on HDB. Let me talk about some of them. HDB flats will become more affordable. An example was given that $1,000 you can buy a 2-room flat. $2,000 household income you can buy a 3-room. $4,000 household income you can buy a 4-room. But you know what's so funny this year? For the first time in the history of the HDB, or for that matter any government body or the Ministry of National Development, the mortgage repayment numbers are not calculated based on a HDB concessionary loan of 2.6%. It was calculated based on a bank loan of 1.52%. Do you think that today's historical low rate of 1.52 will continue for the next 25, 30 years? How can you use the bank rate to illustrate affordability when throughout the life of the HDB and the government, they've been using the HDB concessionary rate to illustrate it? Anyway, I think this term concessionary rate needs to change, because if the rate at 2.6% has always been higher than the bank rate since banks were allowed to offer HDB loans from 1st January 2003, then where is the concession? Let me get back to the specifics. The example given was of a 3-room flat in Sengkang at the average price of $170,000. The lowest price was actually $150,000. But it's very strange, you know. If you look at the Sengkang BTO in March this year, the cheapest 3-room flat was $189,000. How is it by magic? Just because the National Day rally is coming, all of a sudden the price will drop by the cheapest $189,000 to $150,000, which is like a 19% drop. Maybe we call this the magical drop in the Sengkang HDB 3-room, right, in preparation perhaps for the National Day rally. But that is not the main issue. The main issue is this. Just a few days ago, we had another announcement. that HDB loans tenure will be restricted to a maximum of 25 years. But if you take a bank loan, you can still take 30 years. Let's look at the specific numbers for this 3-room Sengkang flat at $170,000. You put 10% down payment, you borrow 90%, that's $153,000. On a HDB concessionary loan, 2.6%, under the new 25-year maximum, the repayment per month is $690. The lower income will have a huge problem when it comes to affordability. You know why? Because the mortgage servicing ratio has also been reduced to a maximum of 30%. So using the same example in the National Day rally, if the household income is $2,000, 30% maximum mortgage debt servicing ratio is only $600. But if the HDB loan is $694, then what do? That means the maximum you can borrow will be short by about $91. Now to a lower income family earning just $2,000, say with a family of 4, $90 a month can mean a world of difference, right? But actually it gets even worse than that. Even at the maximum CPF contribution ordinary account of 21% available to pay for housing, on 2,000 household income, you can use $420 a month of your CPF ordinary account. So even if you qualify for the $153,000 loan, $690, you are still short by $290. For a low-income family, all these changes has made HDB flats much more, well, such as unaffordable for lower-income Singaporeans. Let me next move on to the singles. You know, singles can buy HDB flat now, but then you have to pay $15,000 more. Of course, they tell you when you get married, then we will refund the $15,000 to you. But you see, if you're already over 35 years old and you're still not married, right? And the statistics show, I can see at least one single mother laughing. If you look at the statistics, what is the likelihood that all these people over 35 buy a flat, will eventually get married to get the $15,000 back? They have a step-up grant to encourage people with 2-room flats to upgrade to a 3-room flat and then give them a $15,000 step-up grant. But you know, when you move from a 2-room flat to upgrade from a 3-room flat, the resale levy is also $15,000. So, I give you $15,000 to help you buy, but if you pay $15,000 resale levy, what am I giving you? $0. Now, here's the bigger problem, as I understand it. Not everybody who want to move to a 3-room flat will be able to get the step-up grant because there are various conditions. But almost most of the people, right, who sell a 2-room flat which they had received a subsidy before will have to pay the resale levy. Actually, if you ask me, very simple. If you really want to help all these poor people, lower income people living in 2-room flat to upgrade to 3-room, just say we have, no more 15,000 resale levy. And if you look at the news just 2 days ago, more grants and more people can qualify. You see, when they announced the 2-room flat single scheme, if you read the newspaper, oh, you can buy a flat for $16,000, cheapest flat in the whole world. Why? Because the cheapest 2-room flat is $76,000. You can get a maximum grant of $60,000 in order to only pay $16,000. But to get a maximum grant of $60,000, you must meet all the criteria, first-timer, but the most difficult one to meet is the household income. Your household income must be less than $1,500 before you can qualify for the maximum grant. Now for a single person, it's even more ludicrous. To qualify for the maximum grant of $30,000, your household income can be you must be less than $750. If you're earning $750, I think you must be struggling to survive.